I'm Dean Newlund, and welcome to the Business of Intuition, where I coach, facilitate, train, and speak on the hard science and meaningful experience of intuitive leadership in business, so you can make better decisions, forge real connections, and creatively solve problems to amplify your impact and simplify your life. Welcome to the Business of Intuition.
This episode tells a unique story. It's a story of two blue-collar, middle-class guys who couldn't be more different from one another, that went to law school, found each other, and built a law firm together. It's a story of how opposites create great partners. It's a story about embracing one's ignorance, being a voice to the ignored, and not being afraid of going after sacred cows. It's a story of a murder trial that got international attention and the lessons learned about leadership and building a legacy. Recognized by CNN, Dateline, The Today Show, and People magazine, Eric, Bland, and Ronnie Richter believe in fighting and winning litigation battles only by using honesty, integrity, and providing the utmost candor to the court. Their hard-charging style can occasionally offend the opposition, yet this is merely the natural byproduct of their warrior mentality when going to war for their clients. Both recognized for their excellence year after year, Eric and Ronnie have recently been behind the scenes on one of the country's most covered cases, the Murdaugh murders. Their contrasting style of Southern gentleman and a Philadelphia fighter, together with a shared vision for a hard-charging approach to the practice of law, was the genesis for a great friendship and partnership, which has won over $100 million for their clients. Eric Bland and Ronnie Richter on the Business of Intuition. All right, so Ronnie and Eric, it's great to have you on the show. I'm very curious because we don't normally have two people at once on our podcast, so this will be a unique treat for us. And I think that what I'd like to do is capitalize on that by asking you a question around your partnership, because we have, as you had told me before, different styles. Tell me about the styles and how you've been able to work together, because sometimes what we find in organizations, whether it's a law firm or not, we hire those people who remind us of ourselves because it's easy. Very rarely do you find people who can work with their opposite. You know, I've got a gal on my team who is very different than I am, and thank God, because she keeps me grounded. But it took some time to develop that and find the right person. How are you two different? Let's just say that. And then how have you worked out those differences?
Well, we come from different backgrounds. I'm from up north. I grew up lower middle class. I fought as a kid. I'm kind of streetwise, and, I have that brash northern attitude. Ronnie is a Southern gentleman. He didn't come from privilege. That's a common thread that we have, and he'll tell you more about it. But we're very proud of our partnership. It has lasted 24 years and is going to hopefully take us into the twilight of our careers until we retire. And the reason I think it works is because we are opposites. You will never see two litigators, and we're courtroom lawyers, that have been partners as long as we have. It's very rare. And I think it's the product of a couple things. One is we have separate offices. So I don't think our egos are on top of each other. So we always look forward to seeing each other because we only see each other maybe once a week sometimes. Sometimes it's greater. It's once every couple weeks. So there's always a desire for us to see each other. Two, I think if we both had the same personalities, it would clash because lawyers need to be confident, and we have a tendency not to listen. We tend to have a tendency to listen more to ourselves than others. But in this case, Ronnie is very cerebral, very intellectual, offers tremendously good advice to me. I like to be close to the flame. I live with tension and discord. It makes me operate at my best. My strong qualities come out when pressure's on the line. Ronnie is reserved. He thinks much more than I do before he acts. My mouth is my greatest weapon. It's my greatest detriment. My mouth is my weapon. My words are my currency. I always say that. So I get close to the edge and Ronnie lassos me and pulls me just back over. But I have the tendency, though, because I'm close to the edge, that I pull him up into places that he may not otherwise go to. So when we try a case, there's a lot of in your face from me, which can wear a jury out or infuriate a judge. And if we see that happening, then I get a little tug on the sleeve or a little like this, like a pitching coach does, and the reliever comes in and Ronnie takes over because he will cut you with 1,000 razor blades and you won't feel it until you get up and walk away and you're bleeding to death. Me, it's 1 or 2 punches and you know it. So too much of Ronnie isn't a good thing and too much of Eric isn't a good thing. So
that's great. I love the way you've been able to, Eric, to define the 2 different styles. And I know right now, people can't see you, they can only hear you, but just the way you guys are dressed, it's very different. I mean, Eric, you're much more casual. You got something around your neck, and then Roddy is wearing.
I'm a weightlifter, former bodybuilder. So
yeah.
I dress not like a lawyer and I don't look like a lawyer and I don't talk like a lawyer.
No, and then Ronnie's got obviously a blue coat on. It looks like a nice pressed white collared shirt. The background that I'm looking at is a little bit more corporate. Your office looks like it could be, full of trophies and awards and
sport. I already see weights in the corner.
That's cool.
My life.
So, Ronnie, let me ask you the question about the partnership, and then I want to get into some of the things you guys have learned over the years regarding leadership. What some people would say, a person who is opposite of me, I might understand the fact that I need that balance, but it also pisses me off because they get under my skin. They are the opposite of me, and I think they're foolish in what they do. How do you guys work out, or how did you create the trust where Eric could pull you in or you could pull him in and balance each other out? Because that takes some time and skill. What was your recipe to get to this partnership where you really trusted each other and you were able to play on each other's differences instead of saying, screw it, I don't like this?
Yeah, I think as a kid growing up here, especially in the South, Eric is everything that would have repelled me. Okay, he's brash, he's a northerner, he's loud.
He's a northerner. I love it.
Yes. Let's go ahead and throw that.
Let's get that in there. Right. Okay, let's bring it back.
But let's be honest, as growing up as a kid here, everything about him is something that would have repelled me. All right, so then we had a common experience together. We were, just by happenstance, we tried a case together. We had amazing chemistry. All right, and so a person I was probably predisposed to think, this is not a good fit for me. We had amazing energy together. And then as we spent time together, what I learned was, while our outside is a little bit different, we had a common ethos, a common work ethic. We had a commonality in our backgrounds, in that I like to say we were both just 2 months from nowhere. I wasn't born into lawyers. I'm the son of a pipe fitter who was the son of a pipe fitter. So we're blue collar guys that happened to go to law school, and somebody was dumb enough to get his law degree. And I think the key is that at some point you have to become comfortable with your shortcomings, and you have to appreciate how your partner compliments you, right? I say it all the time. Eric has a skill set that I do not have. And I believe I have one that he does not have. But together, it's such a good compliment. And to Eric's point, yes, if we were on the battlefield, he's taking the line immediately. Okay, I'm trying to study the field. I want to see where the risks are. I want to see downfield. I want to play it forward. If I go here, then what? By the time I get done with that, Eric's already taken 3 or 4 hills. Right? But that's where it works beautifully together. And it's made for a wonderful partnership and a great friendship. I have genuine affection for him. I know he does for me as well. But it's getting past the facade. It's appreciating that you don't have to be all things for all people.
So, for instance, we've never fought about money in 24 years. Never.
What?
No, honest to God, it's the truth. Never about money.
Or workload.
Or workload. And we don't say, well, you're going to do this and I'm going to do that. We just do it. And my emails never trip over his. I'll take a lead on something and it's intuitive. He knows that I'm going to do something and then he'll follow up, or he does something and I'll follow up. My strength is closing. I can close a client. I can close that to get that client and quote a fee. Ronnie's strength is analyzing the problem and offering a solution to the client. I'm often hired because they want somebody who's going to fight for them. There's, a lot of times our clients have gone through a number of lawyers, and the complaint is they haven't heard from their lawyer, or their lawyer is just doing things and not involving them. To a fault, we involve our clients. We are accessible 24 hours a day. This is a personal service business, and we have to offer good service, which is to be available and be responsive. So I am responsive 24 hours a day to texts or phone calls. People call me on my personal line. I got a call today from a television station that they wanted me to do an interview, and they're like, is this your office? And I said, no, this is Eric Bland. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did your number get forwarded from the office? No, this is my cell number. I give it out. I am in the business of servicing people. And so that's the strength that we have. I can go out. I'm not afraid to look at somebody in the eye and tell them what I think we're worth as a partnership and how much a client needs to be paid. Ronnie's not comfortable oftentimes talking money or valuing what our services are, but he's extremely comfortable in looking a client in the eye and telling him, look, here's the way to get from A to B. This is what it's going to take. You screwed up here. And so it's a complementary relationship. I'm never invading his space. He writes better than me. He's more eloquent when he speaks than I am when I do. But in the same time, in a meeting, I can sell. My father taught me to close. I started when I was a kid, when I was able to go to a basketball camp, overnight camp, and not pay for it. I called up the owner of the camp and said, look, if I can get 6 people to pay full tuition, will you let me come for free? And the guy said, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do that. Well, I got my first job, law job at a lie. I graduated in the top of my class. I wanted to go back up north. There was no connection from our placement office in South Carolina to Philadelphia law firms. So I sent my resume out and I wasn't getting any responses. I finally got the hiring coordinator from a large firm in Philadelphia on the phone, and I said, hey, look, I would like to, come to your firm and get an interview. And he said, well, where do you go to law school? And I said, I go to South Carolina. And they're like, oh, no. We only recruit from Ivy League schools. And I said, but I'm going to be up there next Thursday interviewing with Deckard, Price & Rhodes. And as soon as the guy heard that I'm interviewing with Deckard, Price & Rhodes, he said, well, we want to give you an interview. I said, I could do with you in the morning. I didn't have an interview with Deckard. As soon as I got that in the morning, then I called up Deckard, Price & Rhodes and said, Morgan, Lewis & Bacchius is interviewing me next Thursday. They said, absolutely, we want to interview you. And I parlayed that lie to get me in the door.
Yeah.
Once I got in the door, then I got to sell. A leader's got to be able to sell.
So I'm going to get into the lessons learned here in a second, but I want to come back to something you guys said before, which is that you have a common thread. I get the work ethic. I get the blue collar. I understand that part of it. What is that common thread? It sounds like a mission. It sounds like more than just work ethic.
Institutional arrogance. We do not like people that take advantage of the vulnerable. We don't like companies that treat employees in a way that they shouldn't be treated, doctors who mistreat patients, lawyers who exploit clients. That is our fight. We feel like we need to make sure that people who have fiduciary duties do what they're supposed to do. It drives us crazy when a lawyer steals from a client or mistreats a client and then blames a client. Ronnie?
You agree, Ronnie?
Yeah, Dean. So we didn't have some great business plan, some scheme that we're going to corner the market on legal malpractice in South Carolina. It's preposterous, right? But a case came into our office many, many years ago, and it was such a compelling case. And this client had been so badly wronged. He'd been law firm after law firm, and it was told the same thing. We don't sue lawyers. So we heard this story, and 2 young, dumb guys with a lot of principle heard the story and said, you're damn right, we'll sue those guys. Well, we sued the most prominent law firm in the state. And when we did, we were received with such arrogance, such such how dare you? Do you know who we are? Do you know what we can do to you? Kind of attitude. And I think it was fueled, honestly, at least on my part, also by perhaps my own insecurities, that maybe I did feel that about myself, that I was less than them. I didn't come from the same pedigree. I didn't go to the fine schools. But to be pushed on like that, we did not like that. Okay, so the harder they pushed, the deeper we dug. We got a great result, and the phone started to ring that there's two crazy guys in South Carolina who's willing to take on the establishment like that. And that's kind of how the thing blossomed.
And we ended up suing the number one the largest law firm in the world. We've sued the top 5 law firms in our state multiple times. We've sued Miley Price, you name it. We're an equal opportunity suer. If you screw a client, we will sue you no matter what firm you are with or who you are. You lace your shoes, pull up your pants the same way. Like we always say, lawyers are not afraid to sue doctors. They're not afraid to sue bankers. They're not afraid to sue accountants. Why should there be a special license that lawyers won't sue lawyers?
Right.
But there was such a license. I mean, it existed. It still exists in our state. It's still a very unpopular thing to do. We're very large fish in a very small pond because there's just not that many people who are willing to take on the risk that we take on.
Wow. Fascinating. So if you were, I want to ask you both this question. And if you were to do a TED Talk on the philosophy that you have, whether it be on your partnership, on what you just said around your practice and not being afraid to sue other lawyers, what would the title of your TED Talk be? What's the idea worth spreading? Or just off the top of your head, Eric.
My idea is always be selling, always be closing. Everything in life is a sales job. You sell to marry your wife. You have to sell your beliefs and your character to your children. In your workplace, you have to sell yourself to your clients. And I'm not talking about prostituting selling, but I'm talking about a level of consistency. If you're organized, your clients are going to see that. They're going to see that when you meet with them, you have their matter understood and laid out. You have to have a sense of urgency, be quick but not in a hurry. You can't procrastinate. Leaders cannot procrastinate. Like you said, like Ronnie said, you got to be a good listener. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you got to listen first, then you got to act. But I think the most important quality is you got to be mean when it counts, tough when necessary. You're not gratuitously mean, but there are times that you have to turn a screw on someone you love or someone you like or someone you respect because it's the right thing to do. And that is the most difficult thing for a leader to do. It's essential for somebody to be respected as a leader, not liked. If you're respected, that's what you have to have as a leader.
Yep. Okay, so Ronnie, what about you? If you were to do a TED Talk, what would the title be?
Well, in response to Eric's point of view, I think he's both 100% correct and absolutely wrong. So I don't believe at all that you need that structure, that plan, those ideas. I don't believe that, okay? If there's a guiding principle that I think that you have to have, it has to be embrace your ignorance, okay? And I speak to law school classes, graduating classes, and what I try to tell them, just as a guest speaker, but in law school, it is impermissible to not know the answer, okay? And so they send you out there with that pressure to believe that when you're asked about a very complicated question, you're supposed to know the answer. And I would say to them that I'm going to tell you the 3 words that will set you free in your life. Do you know what those 3 words are, Dean?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. So it's okay to not know, right? What's not okay is to not have the intellectual curiosity to find the answer. What's not okay is not to associate yourself with people who might have the answer, right? I don't need to be Eric. I have Eric, right? To hear his point about he's a great closer, I agree. He's fantastic. It's as good as I've ever seen. I don't need to be that, okay? Because I've associated with myself with someone who has that skill set, right? So I would say to any young professionals, people out there, This idea that you have to have it all mapped out, that you have to have the answers. I think that's complete and utter bunk. All right. What you have to do is embrace your own ignorance, get comfortable with it, and expand your horizons, associate with people who have the answers that you don't have.
But what Ronnie's saying is, and I've told this to my kids, is, all my life, I've not wasted time with people that could not benefit me, make me a better person, or advance me. So I've always associated with difference makers. And when I was younger, I always hung out with older people. When I became a young married couple, our friends were always 20 years older than us, because I think people learn by trial and error. You can't learn until you feel the pain. What can an 18-year-old tell me that I could get better from a 33-year-old that has lived through his 20s? So, all right, I think you have to constantly learn, and that follow up to what Ronnie's saying about being ignorant is, you never can be arrogant enough to think that you have all the answers. You are always learning. You are always consuming. So I'm a consumer of information. I have a voracious appetite for facts. I'm a fact guy. Ronnie can tell you, I can tell you somebody's batting average, how many goals they had, who had the most in a game, or I can peel apart a document and recite a fact or tell you where it is. Ronnie is theoretical. So when you mix that tactile of fact with a guy that's very theoretical and understands the law and weaves in an argument, he loads me up with the argument. I go, and then when I get tired, I turn and I say, like I always do, Ronnie, and he finishes it off.
Sounds good. So here's that. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I remember an epiphany moment that I had in college. And that was it. When I went to college, I went, just as closed-minded, looking back on my young self and as ignorant as anybody that I've ever come across. That having all of the answers as a young person. But I remember my epiphany moment of realizing that I knew nothing. I mean, I truly knew nothing. And I got to tell you, it set me free. It set me free to realize that whatever the world order was that I thought I understood, that I really had no understanding at all. And it kind of opened my mind to be able to be receptive to different points of view and to explore different avenues. I would never have been a lawyer if I didn't have that first epiphany moment.
And I can see why that arrogance and the idea that you have to know things would be irritating when you come into contact with other law firms who present that kind of perspective. Because that's not who you guys are.
No. Well, they don't present it. They tell you. Not only do
they tell you that. Yeah. So I have another quick question for either one of you. So it's a two-part question. One, you got a very public murder trial that you guys are involved in. Can you give us a very quick high level of what that's about, just to kind of keep people who are listening remembering of that? And then two, you've told me before we started this conversation that you've got like a 12-step leadership set of principles. Based on this high-profile case that you're on, which of these 12 principles are you really leaning into now? Which ones are really showing up as being most important? So one, tell us a quick thing about the case. And then two, which of the principles are really becoming prevalent for you to be able to get through this time?
Well, cases, Alex Murdaugh is going to go to trial next week for the charge of killing his wife and son on June 7th, 2021. We are involved in the murder case because what we did is, in addition to him being charged with murder, he was an incredible thief, and he stole millions and millions of dollars from his clients. And so naturally, those people came to Ronnie and me because we're lawyers that sue lawyers. So in the fall of 2021, when his life started unraveling, and it was discovered that there was money missing from his law firm, we got calls from victims, clients of his, where he had stolen their money. And we represented a family known as the Satterfields, where he took $4.3 million of their money. Ronnie and I made the decision that the only way that we would be able to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish was through pressure, being fearless, getting on the TV, making relationships with journalists who would champion our story, get the word out there that we have a lawyer, this prominent lawyer who was the president of the Plaintiffs' Trial Lawyers Association, who for 3 generations, his family were the solicitors in this small county in South Carolina, that we would get the public on our side. We think that overwhelming force creates pressure, and too much pressure will break a pipe. So I got out on TV and quickly was saying things that nobody would say about a prominent person in this state and the law firm that he came from, that money was taken, that they didn't watch out for the clients, that it was a disgrace. And we started to get momentum. So for us, and we recovered more than $7.5 million for a family that lost a $4.3 million settlement. And then we represented a whole host of other victims and got results from them. But it's getting out in front of a story, being fearless in speaking the truth. A lot of times people are afraid to speak the truth. I use the media to our advantage, but they used me to their advantage. It was a mutual relationship. I provided them with stories and facts. They gave me a platform. Same way with the written media. So, there's people that are scared of the media or think that the media is dangerous. Yeah, they're dangerous and I'm dangerous, and we both recognize that. So we put our fears aside and we work together. So for us, it was full charging. Anything that we do is full tilt. You don't ease into it. You don't go 20 miles an hour. We step on the gas and on your throat the minute we are engaged. And it worked out to our advantage. And now we're known as the Murdaugh lawyers that opened up all the financial misdeeds that he's done. And now we can tell the story. People like podcasters, or I was on Chris Cuomo last night. We've been on the Today Show, 2020, Netflix, you name it, because we are able to tell the story of the deception and the exploitation of vulnerable people, his clients. Ronnie?
So, Ronnie, before I get to you, so Eric, you mentioned a lot of things in what you just said, but you mentioned things like pressure, fearless. Are those 2 characteristics part of the 12 that you told me about before?
Well, you can only exert pressure and you can only be fearless if you're prepared. So the 12 principles I live by are: you got to be organized. You have to have a sense of urgency, be quick and not in a hurry. You got to be a good listener. You got to be mean when it counts, tough when necessary. You want to be a leader, not a follower. I know Ronnie talked about in the Marines, they look for those that follow a leader. But I always say the view from the front is better than the view from the back. You got to be consistent in everything you do. You have to be positive, not negative. You got to get into habits. I'm a guy that believes in habits. I wake up at the same time every day. I like to eat the same thing. Yeah, change can be good, but change isn't good on your foundational principles. I work out at the same time every day. So it all builds on itself. And these principles, if you could do 8 of these 12, you're going to be dynamite in everything you do. But if you show me a disorganized person, you show me somebody that procrastinates, you show me somebody that is afraid to make those hard decisions, you don't have a leader. You're going to have somebody that's going to be a failure.
Got it. So, Roddy, what about you? What's your take on this case specifically as it relates to some of the principles that you guys espouse?
Well, I mean, these are Eric's principles, not mine, but
yeah. Okay. What are yours?
We do overlap quite a bit. Well,
okay.
When this case came to us, you would have to understand what this family meant in this community to appreciate the danger associated with undertaking this case. All right. Personal danger, professional danger. I mean, this is hunting bear, and the number one rule is kill the bear. Okay. So if we're going to do it, you have to be right. So this is the forward looking, like, how does this play out? And the decision we made early on was the only way this can be done safely is with the lights fully on. So it's looked upon very poorly in our state to engage the press in legal matters. But we needed sunlight, and we needed lots of it. because we were not going to operate in the darkness professionally with a group this powerful. Okay, so that was on the front end. Let's turn the lights on. Let's be right. Okay, number one. And to Eric's point, when the decision is made to go, there is no looking back. I mean, go is go. So we said we're going, we went, and we went hard. Now it all worked out. And it's easy now to look back in hindsight and say, that was great. But there were no guarantees on the front end it was going to go the way that it went. All you could do on the front end is plan carefully, anticipate the risks as best you can, and then at least have the commitment to go. And I think that's where Eric and I overlap, that I might be slower to get to the point of go, but when it's time to go, we go.
Yeah, very good. So both of you guys, just to sort of wrap this up a little bit, I want to ask you just more an open-ended question, and I'll go back to Eric. If you were to talk to another leader in an organization, not a lawyer, but just a leader who is wanting to make some bold changes and lead their team well, what sort of 2 or 3 things would you say is absolutely important for them to be doing? Maybe it's a reiteration of what you've already said, but I just kind of want to leave with what's the most important 2 or 3 things that leaders should be focused on?
One is your word. Al Pacino said it best in Scarface, I don't break my balls or my word for anybody. So your word is most important. 2, you have to be a leader in the sense when, again, making those tough decisions so that people respect you. Tough decisions that need to be made, whether it's demoting somebody or firing somebody, you have to be able to make a decisive decision. Again, I use the word decision. People have a very difficult time of making a decision. I would rather be strong and wrong than right and weak. And what does that mean? If I make 10 decisions, I can make a decision quickly. I may be wrong, one of those 10 decisions, but the way I'm wrong, I'm really going to be able to wiggle my way out of it. But 9 times I'm right. People that labor hard, they can't make a decision. So a leader can make a decision. The other thing is that you have to be accountable. True leaders are accountable. Ronnie doesn't let me blame others. If it's my fault, I take the blame. And people appreciate and respect that. So 1 is your word. 2, you have to be accountable. And 3, you got to be able to make a decision. Make that decision. Don't always do it from gut, obviously, but trust your instincts. And if you're strong and wrong, you'll be good. Better than to be right and weak. Ron?
Yeah, I would say from the outset, the key for any organization, for any leader, is to be honest internally. We see business after business that has failed. And when you look at the reason for the failure, it was the open and obvious reason it was going to fail from the outset. So, too many people live in a world of denial, a world where they're not willing to embrace the weakness in the organization. So take an honest assessment. You know what you're good at, what you're not good at. If you have a deficit, seek to bolster that up. But to ignore it, to put off problems, that's a cancer in any organization. When an issue arises, you have to address it immediately. Don't let it fester, and don't live in some Pollyanna world where the thing that is obviously wrong right in front of you is something that you're not willing to embrace. So again, I like the point of view that you should embrace your ignorance. You should get comfortable in your limitations, and there's a workaround, but you're not going to get there until you first accept the reality of it.
Excellent. So guys, what's the next step on the case?
Well, we still have some civil cases pending, but it's this murder case that's going to captivate the whole entire world, believe it or not, starting next Monday.
Yeah.
Push back a little bit because of the murders in Idaho, as well as the Walsh murder that appears in Massachusetts. He's going to be criminally charged today for killing his wife. But for the better part of the last 2 years, this has captivated the world. I was in England in the fall, golfing, and somebody asked me, what do I do? It was a caddy, and I said, I'm a lawyer. And he said, where are you a lawyer? I said, South Carolina. He said, hey, isn't that where that Murdaugh case is? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, do you know about it? And I said, yeah, I'm actually involved in it. And the guy looked at me and he said, hey, I recognize you. I've seen you on TV. So, I mean, wow, it's over the world. In our podcast, Cup of Justice, we have a high percentage of listeners, believe it or not, from Ireland. So they're
really,
yeah.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, it's been an honor to get to know the two of you more and to hear your story. And I wish you the best with this case. And it seems like you've entered into the realm of celebrity.
I hope you have celebrity. No.
You don't think so? Well, you got caddies over in Ireland who can recognize you. I think there's a little bit of celebrity going on.
Nah, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. How can people connect with you?
We are the law firm of Bland and Richter. We have offices in Columbia, Charleston, South Carolina. Our web is www.blandrichter.com. Ronnie's phone number is 843-834-2130, and my personal cell is 803-600-7476. And we work for our clients. We work 24 hours a day, and we're here if you need us.
And you got the Cup of Justice, right?
The Cup of Justice podcast. Yeah, I do it with Mandy Matney and Liz Barrel. Mandy Matney is well known. She has the Murdaugh Murder podcast. We're a sister kind of component to that. And it's been a fun ride.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, guys.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Business of Intuition. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com.